In my nightmares, I see it in the cornfield. And he spots me, and he starts running. And I'm thinking, it's gonna take me. And I just wanted it to stop.
Skinwalker will stun you and make you immovable, like you're having a nightmare. Everything just shuts down on you.
The aliens try to convince you that they're not going to hurt you. That's not the truth. They do all kinds of things to you that's very painful. You feel very violated. It's a landscape so extreme, so harsh, and inhospitable. It's hard to imagine people have survived here for thousands of years. The desert is rugged country. And making matters worse, legends of evil residing especially close.
We've got many wide open spaces. We've got a lot of canyons with caves, all kinds of places for strange and unusual things to hide.
The legends and myths of the southwestern desert area range from the benign to the truly malevolent and evil, which bestows curses upon people, causing them great pain and even death.
My grandmother would always tell me at night, don't wander far off, you don't know what's out there. It might grab you. Things like that, just to scare us. At first, that's what I was thinking. But then, as I got older, I knew what she was talking about. It was true.
In New Mexico's remote northwest corner, cattle and sheep ranchers fight a constant battle for survival against the desert's unrelenting heat. Life goes on. That is until something wicked comes to call. Over the past few decades, ranchers have suffered a series of unexplainable acts of terror. Farm animals mutilated and left for dead.
Mutilated is a misnomer, because really, the wounds were surgically precise. There are dead cattle, dead sheep, and in most instances, no blood. So, where did the blood go?
I've worked as a professional meat cutter and butcher for 30 years. I know what happens when you open up an animal. They bleed. And when these animals are ripped up in the fashion that they are, there should be pools of blood everywhere, and they're bloodless. There's no blood.
Since the 1960s, scores of mutilation attacks have taken place across New Mexico. To date, more than 10,000 cattle deaths. There's never been an arrest.
For the most part, police investigators are simply baffled at what happened with respect to these cattle mutilations. And so they've chalked up most of these investigations as unexplainable. They have no idea what happened.
When police can't find explanations for these massacres, talk turns to rumors about supernatural creatures. At the top of the list are two suspects, both believed to have the means and motive for carrying out such mayhem. One is considered pure evil, a demonic assassin known as a skinwalker. The other is an entirely different predatory beast. We'll travel deep into tribal land, where Navajos speak of thunderbirds.
Since the Western times, there have been sightings of thunderbirds. However, recent sightings, as early as the 1800s, have attributed them to being more looking like pterodactyls, like prehistoric animals. And these sightings have become more and more prevalent.
Massive airborne hunters, 3 times the size of modern eagles. Scientists say these flying dinosaurs died out long ago. In the desert, some claim otherwise.
Funny thing about the thunderbird and funny thing about the pterodactyls, nobody ever told them they were extinct.
These stories and legends about thunderbirds out there on the reservation, they go far back to the grandfathers, the grandparents, the great-grandmothers, great-grandpas.
The ancient stories tell of a supernatural bird so powerful, the sky thunders when it flies.
If you've ever looked at a totem pole, you can see the thunderbird, and it's usually at the top. They believe that a person could transform into a thunderbird, and then, depending on that person's personality, could be benign or could be malevolent.
A thunderbird can be a bunch of different situations. We've got sightings of a very large raven-like creature with a 30-foot wingspan. We've got sightings of a pterodactyl-like creature with a leathery skin.
It was huge. It was very huge. This creature is the only thing that I have ever seen that would be capable of killing such a large amount of animals.
Audrey Tortez doesn't normally share stories about fantastic creatures. She's a security officer on the Navajo reservation, which often requires dead serious attention to patrolling endless miles of desert.
My grandmother always used to tell me to be careful and come back before it got dark.
Audrey didn't listen to her grandmother.
I was driving my vehicle on a dirt road, heading back to the main highway. The weather was clear. I had my windows rolled down. I hear this whooshy noise. The next thing I know, in front of my vehicle, I saw this huge bird. I can describe it only as the color of maybe an elephant, the skin almost similar. It had no feathers, and it was flying a few feet in front of me. The wingspan was pretty big because it covered the full length of the road. I stopped my vehicle. I was shocked at what I had seen.
Audrey's sighting is one of many. She and Brenda Harris have never met, but live just 10 miles apart. Brenda grew up with stories of the Thunderbird. She never expected to see a flying monster.
That day, I was just doing my normal errands, and I was driving down the road, and I just happened to look down the cliff there, and I just saw this thing flying across, right above the river. It looked like a what they call a pterodactyl. The river's really wide, but when it kind of narrows in some areas, that wingspan was just as wide as that river. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
And like any prehistoric predator in search of food, Audrey and Brenda both believe they were lucky to live.
I believe that some of these creatures would be responsible for some of these large amounts of slaughter on the Navajo Nation. I believe so. If I probably went out of my vehicle, it probably would have attacked me. And nobody would have seen me again. I'm sure of it.
I tell people, beware of your surroundings. We don't know what's out there. We don't know what these creatures are capable of doing. Let it do what it needs to do. If it wants the food, let it take it. Because we don't know how powerful these things are. And you may get hurt.
While some believe these great winged beasts are behind the livestock slaughter, there's another suspect worth considering. A conjured killer, summoned as a tool for revenge. Skinwalkers. All frightening. All evil.
The sheep were all piled up in one corner. Something very evil happened here last night.
In a rural corner of New Mexico, residents claim to see the legendary Thunderbird. Some think this relic from the dinosaur age is responsible for a series of unexplained livestock massacres. Others say the real culprit is a monster made from magic. They speak in whispers about skinwalkers.
A lot of people, they don't really want to talk about it because they'll know that you're talking about them, they're listening.
Native American tribes are very uncomfortable talking about them because anybody could be a skinwalker.
They can harm you or even kill you or injure a loved one.
75-year-old Native American Leonard Dan is a retired geologist, a living embodiment of the Navajo ways. He knows the stories of the wicked ones from warnings handed down since the earliest times.
These stories were passed down to us so that we can know more about what to expect in case we see something. If we see any of these creatures, then we would already know what it is.
In 1969, the creatures the family cared about most were sheep. In the fall, Leonard, his young son, and his father were spending a pleasant day tending to the flock. They had been sheep herders for generations, and times were good. It looked like there'd be lambs and wool to sell that winter.
There was about 150 head of sheep, small ones and big ones, lambs. My father had pinned up all the sheep. We locked the gate up and made sure that nothing can get in there to them.
That night, something dangerous was lurking.
following morning, real early, about 5 o'clock, my father got up and said, I'm going to go check on the sheep, make sure they're okay. We all jumped in our vehicles and we went up there.
Leonard's son went along too.
And I looked inside the corral, and all the sheep that were dead were all piled up in one corner, like they were thrown over there. My son was really terrified, and this was his first experience, something like this.
They're all dead. They're all dead.
You kind of question yourself. You want to know who did it or what happened. At the time, I didn't think of a skinwalker until my father brought the shaman or the medicine man.
While the tribal police investigating the sheep killings were puzzled, a medicine man found clues. The tracks weren't normal. They showed no sign of a struggle. None of the claw marks that a natural predator would make.
Dad convinced the medicine man. He told us, see the tracks there? That's the skinwalker tracks.
What a skinwalker is basically a witch. Now, a witch in Native American culture is a little different than a witch in European culture. A witch in Native American culture is a male. They can change form at will. Typically, their forms are of coyotes, wolves, owls, birds. But if you talk to tribal elders, they will tell you that skinwalkers can assume any form, even an insect form.
I don't believe that a skinwalker is killing any kind of livestock for calories. They would be doing it out of a vengeful situation, or it might have been something where they were instructed to take out these people's livestock for revenge.
Skinwalkers are out to go harm people, told to go harass.
Skinwalkers do curses at the behest of somebody else.
After we saw the slaughter sites, I was telling my son, see these tracks? These are a big wolfman tracks. He was afraid. He was only 6 years old at the time. And I told him to stay by me, don't wander off anywhere. And all of a sudden, we saw a big wolf running across the ravine. Here we were tracking this wolf, but it was actually a skinwalker tracking us. A skinwalker will stun you and make you immovable where you can't move, like you're having a nightmare. Or you can't scream because everything just shuts down on you. It starts to get all black. And you can't scream or you can't move or run. This is something that these evil things that they do.
That wouldn't be the last time Leonard would confront a skinwalker. Several years later, while he was working, he came upon a woman near a water well.
All of a sudden, there was a young girl in her early 20s pumping that water. And it turned around to face me. And her face was something like a wolf. It was all darkened with white streaks, vertical streaks. And it looked at me, and I kind of got fear built up inside of me. And I kind of sped up the truck and I went. And I looked back in my mirror. It was gone.
One of the scariest characteristics of a skinwalker, and you'll hear that in Native American tribes, is that it can be anybody. It could be the person standing next to you, and that makes them extremely dangerous.
With the skinwalker, there's definitely something demonic, some demonic ties into it. They've got powers that we can't explain. And the actual transition to emulate an animal and become that animal, we can't even imagine how that happens, but it is a practice of evil.
And skinwalkers aren't the only monsters people here have come to fear. They share the desert with another demonic beast. Only this one hides by day and spreads terror at night.
Why is it bothering me? And I just wanted it to stop.
Just a few miles down a lonely desert road from where some say giant creatures fly, another legend grows. This one creeps in the night, terrorizing a family that's fighting back despite their fear. 25-year-old Rhonda Price loves the outdoors. The former high school track star is still running. Only now, something dangerous is trailing her steps. Late one summer night in 2012, Rhonda's desert solitude was shattered. Her date had gone later than expected. That meant sneaking into the house as quietly as she could.
Getting out of my car, it kind of felt like there was something outside. You get that feeling there's somebody watching you? I kind of got that feeling.
Rhonda couldn't shake the feeling. Despite the late hour, she kept waking up.
So I tried to go back to sleep, and I was laying there, and I guess I dozed off for maybe another 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and that's when I heard the scratching. I go to my sister's room, and I wake her up, and I ask her, can you come with me to my room? And I said, I heard something tried coming through my window. I said, go back into the room with me, because I don't want to go in there by myself. And, we don't want to turn the light on, so there's a flashlight on my phone. So we walked towards the window, and the little door on the AC, the air conditioner was pushed over. And I shined my flashlight out the window, but I didn't see anything. So me and my sister, we was like, okay, why did it try coming through the window? What did it want?
Still uneasy, Rhonda decided to wake up the rest of the family.
Tell me what happened.
Everybody was scared, frightened.
She started telling us that she started hearing tappings on the window and stuff. At first I thought it was, just people coming around that were just trying to scare her, knocking on the window or scratching on the window and taking off, doing stuff like that,
It's too dark. I can't see anything. It's too dark. I can't tell if there's anything outside or not. Do you see it anywhere? It's too dark outside. What is it? What's wrong? What did you see?
Rhonda was no longer sure what was there, or not. Although her intuition might be correct. According to local legend, it may have been a beast called the Night Stalker.
It's usually a bipedal creature of sorts that's very hard to see at night. And they usually outline a being that looks human-like. But we're not sure exactly what it is because they come in different shapes, different forms. These Night Stalker beings will go into cornfields, they will go into alfalfa fields, even on pavement or on a dirt road. So our evidence becomes very limited when they start traveling.
Most of your traditional people are very frightened. They're not allowed to talk about it. They're not allowed to share information about it. It's taboo. The younger generation coming up, they're trying to get answers to what they're seeing, to what's going on.
After that night, I had thought to myself, well, this is just a one-time thing. It's not going to happen again. I should be okay, but it's just a constant thinking of, what if it comes back? What if it gets through my window this time?
The next morning was warm and bright. Perhaps they could forget about the night before. Then, they discovered the scratch marks outside Rhonda's window. And days later, the Night Stalker struck again.
Me and the family were out of town. My dad was here with my sister. And they heard growling and real loud, scratching metal or something out there. And when I came home a few days later, I noticed that his truck was all on the front fender. It was all clawed up, like something was trying to get into the under the hood.
And that wasn't the only surprise waiting for Rhonda.
Not being able to sleep because I'm thinking it's going to come through my window and it's going to take me.
In the deserts of the Southwest, there's a Night Stalker. Some sort of demon that shifts its form at will, spreading panic and fear. One young woman will come to feel its hideous touch, and her family will be driven to the very edge of sanity.
I go to my room, and I remember when I left, I closed my door completely, and I approached my door, and my door was open a little bit. So I walk into my room, and I move my curtains, and the air conditioner door was pushed down again.
It came back. Why did it come back?
I'm thinking, why is it bothering me? And I just wanted it to stop. Because not being able to sleep because I'm thinking it's going to come through my window and it's going to take me.
Even on nights when the creature didn't come scratching, he visited Rhonda's dreams.
In my nightmares, I see it in the cornfield, and he's standing there and he spots me. And he starts running. And I woke up and, I was like, I don't want to go to sleep. And I'm thinking it's going to come back for me.
I'm scared that one night is just going to come in and, just bust the window and come in and take Rhonda. All my kids are scared. I'm scared. I guess I'm just scared that, it's going to hurt her.
I had to stop it. I was getting frustrated with it, because my kids were scared, my wife's scared. And I started setting my alarm clock for the morning, and I would go out there, and I'd have my firearm, and I'd walk around the house.
The next time he heard his daughter scream, Gerard was ready, determined to have a showdown with the monster.
In our neighbor's cornfield, and they're midway through their field. I seen some red-orange eyes facing me, but there was really no shape or form. All I seen was the eyes. And I fired at it, and when I fired at it, it didn't take off like an animal. It just shifted to the right. I was yelling at it, "Why are you coming around here, bothering my daughter? Why can't you come face me?" I was really mad, and I was cursing it, calling it every name in the book. It ticks me off. It gets under my skin, and I want to get down to it and stop it.
Despite her father's efforts, the Night Stalker found a way to leave its mark on Rhonda.
One morning she came into my room, and she said, "Mom, she goes, look at these scratches." And she said, "I don't know how I got them. But, with the track and the scratches on the window, it would, just match the scratches on her body." And it makes me scared that it could actually, take her or harm her.
Rhonda has since moved a couple hundred miles from her parents' home to get a fresh start. Not everyone can escape a living nightmare by moving away. Unwelcome visitors have been haunting one man since he was a young boy. And with their extraterrestrial abilities, they can follow him wherever he goes.
The aliens try to convince you that they're not going to hurt you. That's not the truth. They do all kinds of things, too, that's very painful. They play mind games.
There is one corner of the desert that carries a unique reputation for monsters and mysteries. A place where aliens visit from space. 75 miles north of Las Vegas is a 5,000 square mile patch of desert wasteland. It encloses America's most secret military facility, Area 51. The holy grail for millions concerned about aliens. It was built at the dawn of the nuclear age. Nearly 1,000 atomic weapons were tested here, along with top-secret espionage and aircraft technology. Over the years, the very secrecy needed to protect U.S. military advances has connected this remote stretch of desert with the mother of all monster beliefs, aliens from space. Some suggest that when atomic weapons began exploding in the desert sky, it spurred extraterrestrials to pay Earth a visit. Then, in the late 1960s, a new alien experience emerged. They weren't just flying by for a look. Now they were taking us. UFO researchers say that alien abduction cases worldwide run into the millions. Brett Oldham is one of those cases.
I've heard people tell me that, I wish aliens would take me. They don't know what they're saying. It's not something I would wish on my worst enemy.
And it didn't just happen to Brett by himself. He and his girlfriend shared the entire dreadful encounter, losing the most precious thing of all to the aliens.
When I first moved to Las Vegas, I was pretty excited to be out in this kind of terrain. I came from northeast Ohio with the bad weather and everything, and I was so happy to be out here with the palm trees and nice weather.
A gifted musician who played professionally in Las Vegas, Brett Oldham's life began to turn upside down in his early 20s.
I started getting panic attacks, and all of a sudden, I didn't want to go outside. I was in a large crowd. It would trigger a panic attack. It was really, really unusual for me to experience these kind of feelings, and I couldn't explain any of it.
There was times that Brett was depressed, so something was bothering him, but I didn't know what it was.
I've been having this reoccurring nightmare that I was a little child and bright light was coming through the window, and I walked over to the window and pulled the curtains back, and as I did, right in front of me was what is considered now the typical gray alien, a foot from my face. And I didn't ever know why I would have this reoccurring nightmare, but it continued my entire life.
At some point, Brett realized these weren't just nightmares. He's convinced they were real memories of real alien abductions.
They always want to calm you. They'll come up sometimes and they'll put their hand on your forehead. And I don't know if this is a method that they try to use mentally, but they always have these reassuring statements that they're not going to hurt you and you're going to be okay and everything like that. That's not the truth. They do all kinds of things to you that's very painful. You feel very violated. I mean, something that you don't want to be a part of.
For years, Brett kept these abductions secret, even from those with whom he was closest.
Brett and I met in 2006. We hit it off right away. We had a lot of things in common, and it was, pretty much love at first sight.
Soon, Gina would suspect something was wrong.
Babe, wake up. Babe, wake up. You're having a nightmare.
I would be woken up by him screaming, groaning, moaning. He was very upset. I'd never heard him sound like this before. It would make the hair rise on the back of my neck.
I didn't want to subject anybody else, especially somebody that I loved, to this, and I didn't want to scare her.
After 2 long years of bad dreams,
What's going on with you?
Brett finally told Gina the truth.
Well, I didn't want to tell you because I don't want to scare you.
It was very upsetting, and to know that someone I loved, my husband, had gone through this. Now that I know the truth and that he is an abductee, it frightens me because I know that they can still come and take him. And it also frightens me for myself. They could take me too.
But there was one final secret. A memory of the single most horrifying abduction Brett had ever been victim to. It happened before he met Gina, when he and a former girlfriend were expecting a child, and they were abducted together.
I'm scared. I'm frightened. I don't want them to come back. I think they forced Brett to watch what they're doing to me to get his reaction, a human reaction.
While living in the Nevada desert, Brett Oldham claims that aliens from space abducted him. Brett told his wife about the encounters with the Greys, except for his worst abduction, when he was taken with his former girlfriend.
In 1988, I had met a girl. We began dating, and after a few months, she had moved in with me. Everything was going really great, and then we found out she was pregnant.
I was so happy, and my friends were all, they wanted to buy things, and we couldn't wait to do the bedroom for the baby, but we didn't know what it was going to be. It was typical mom stuff. Brett was very excited because that would have been his first baby. So we were really happy. We were all happy that we were going to have a baby.
Brett had already confided in Diane about the alien abductions. But she had no idea the aliens would soon come hunting for them both.
I'd been taken, abducted by these aliens by myself my entire life until I was 29 years old, until that night that my girlfriend and I were taken together. There was nothing unusual about that night. We went to bed. She had an old typewriter that she had placed beside the bed. And during the night, we were both awakened by a loud bang.
I jumped up and I saw these three things. It was dark in our room, but you could tell they were gray. And they had these eyes that looked like almonds. They were huge. And then I closed my eyes and shook my head to wake up because I thought, well, maybe I'm dreaming.
You open your eyes and you're in shock that you're seeing these creatures in your room with you.
I was so scared. I couldn't move. I didn't believe it was real. And then the next thing I know, I was out. I mean, completely out.
I was surrounded by the aliens. The Greys were surrounding me. I'd never seen so many of them at the same time in a room together. And we were both nude.
I remember waking up and I was freezing cold. And I was on this slab, like a gray metal bed, kind of like a gurney. And I couldn't move at all. And then I kind of turned my head a little bit and I could see Brett. And I was looking at Brett, and Brett, his eyes, I'll never forget his eyes because they were so big and he looked so scared.
They had her in a position much like you would an OBGYN would do in an exam. Had her legs up and in that position. And she was screaming, "Just don't take my baby, stop! Don't take my baby, please stop," begging them.
I was scared, and I didn't want to lose my baby because I loved my baby, and I didn't want to lose it.
After the aliens took the fetus from her and forced me to watch it, I basically just went berserk. I was so angry. I was so wanting to hurt them. If I could have killed one of them, I probably would have. And then the next thing I remember, we were waking up the next morning. Sun was coming through the window, and she noticed blood.
Brett rushed Diane to the hospital.
Well, after the doctor examined her, and he seemed kind of perplexed, and he said, I've never seen anything like this.
And that's when he told us that there was no fetus in there. It was like I was never pregnant. And I was like, what? I didn't understand. He goes, well, it's like you're not even pregnant.
He said, I just examined her a few days ago, and she was totally pregnant, heartbeat, everything was great. And right now, there's no sign that she's ever been pregnant. And Brett looked over at me and he said, they took it. And I knew what he meant.
And I just went into shock and got hysterical and could not believe what happened. It was gone, like it was never there.
At the time, neither one of us knew anything that we could say to the other that would make any difference or make the other feel any better about it.
I think our relationship broke up because I blamed him so much for that. I thought it was all his fault. Brett had been abducted, so I think I blamed him a lot.
The Greys had plagued Brett most of his life. Now they had stolen a chance for him to be a father. Years later, when Brett was abducted again, the aliens had someone or something they wanted him to meet.
I was led into a large area that I'd never seen before, and then from the light down the hallway, I see a figure come out of the light. As it got closer to me, I realized that it wasn't a normal alien. It appeared to me to be like a hybrid, and it seemed female. As it got close enough for me, I could see that it was carrying a child that looked very much like it. And the child just looked up at me, and the female telepathically said, "This is your child." And she just had the sweetest look on her face, and even though she was not human, I still felt some kind of connection to her. And a part of me kind of believed that maybe that was indeed something that I had created, a child. A part of me was in the DNA of that alien being.
Brett hasn't seen the child since. But more than 20 years later, he can't help but wonder where it is today.
I feel very sad that I've never been able to be with that child, can never have any kind of part of their life, and that they're not all human.
Brett and his wife Gina have moved far away from the desert. And since he left, the aliens don't come to call as often. Nevertheless, for those that have felt the probing hands of the extraterrestrials, life will never be normal again.
I kept this a secret for 25 years. I locked it away. I'm just a normal person. I didn't go looking for this. It just happened.
I was afraid to come forward. I buried this secret for 4 decades. I think it's important that people know that this is a very real phenomenon that's happened.
I've seen it. I've lived it. They're real.